So what I'm going to do today is present you what I would call a techno-social project. So where it's a technology project but embedded in social ideas. And so my point of view, if you like, is that technology is not neutral. It's always techno-social. And this kind of graph that you see here is something I use to look at, what are the values that are embedded in the design of a particular technology. So I start from the point of view that today most technologies are moving towards a peer-to-peer paradigm in which autonomous computers and the people using them can permissionlessly connect with each other, communicate, self-organize, create value. But not all peer-to-peer technologies are equal to each other. So this gives you an idea of how you could have a look, a political look, if you want, at technology. So imagine you have centralized versus distributed, and a for-profit orientation versus a for-benefit orientation. So many people use Facebook. Facebook enables and empowers peer-to-peer interaction on a global scale, 2 billion people. They can connect with each other, organize with each other. But if you look at the back end of Facebook, very clearly, it's not peer-to-peer. It's a centralized platform owned by corporate shareholders. It has a for-profit aim. You don't own your data, and 100% of the exchange value that's realized on top of the platform is realized by the owners and not by the people creating the value on Facebook, which is us. So in a way, it's free, but it's also hyper-exploitative if you look at it from the other point of view. So definitely this gives you a political orientation of why this technology is that way, because it has a for-profit orientation. It needs to create scarcity and all the things that go with it. Next one, imagine you have a peer-to-peer system, technological system. It's distributed, but it has been designed with a for-profit point of view. So I like to compare, I know it's not kind, but the people who have designed Bitcoin, the anarcho-capitalist ideology, it's to the market what fashions was to the state. In other words, everything needs to be commodified. Everybody has to be a trader. And so it's designed to realize that political vision. Bitcoin is heavily centralized. The mining is centralized. The Gini coefficient of Bitcoin is higher. The inequality coefficient is higher than sovereign fiat money. And it's all going that direction. It's not going in the direction of equality. It's going in the direction of more inequality. It has many other but really nice features. It's open source, so you can fork the code. In theory, any computer can produce it, etc., etc. But it's very clearly, there is a political vision behind the design of Bitcoin, right? Deflationary design. The value can only go up. It has a very particular vision of how this is done. Okay, we move to the right, which is really moving to the left, actually. But I see it as a time continuum. So this is where we need to go. So worldwide, we have an extraordinary revival of local community-oriented economics. We have new food supply chains, new local currencies. Let's not forget that it has a lot to do with technology as well. The transaction coordination and communication cost of doing these things has dramatically fallen. So it's now much more easier to do these things than, let's say, 10, 15 years ago. And we have an explosion of these initiatives. Just an example, 48% growth of urban food production in the US in just 2 years, right? So these urban community-oriented food production, it works, and it's growing very rapidly, as is the number of complementary currencies, etc. Is this enough? No. And so the fourth one is a global orientation, a for-benefit orientation, so doing things for the benefit of a global commons community. Think about Wikispeed, global design, car engineers from the whole world working together, like 26 other open source car projects. They have a global commons, a global shareable commons. But its aims is to locally manufacture the car in a micro factory. But you could combine that with a global organization of all the little co-ops who make the car locally. And that would create global counterpower to multinational companies. So this is just to give you an idea, and I don't have much time to go into it, of how you could analyze technology in terms of your social goals. So we were asked to do a project by the government in Ecuador, and let me specify exactly how that works. So we had 3 entities: the Ministry of Knowledge, the Secretary of Innovation, and the public university called IAEN. They funded this project. They invited 5 or 6 researchers, and I was the lead researcher in this project. And here was the question: how can we move Ecuador, which is now based on extractive industries, in other words, exporting finite material goods at low added value, and then having to import production and consumption goods at high added value. So in other words, it's a recipe for permanent neo-colonial dependency and exploitation. How can we move the economy to an economy that's based on shared knowledge pools, right? So imagine, you can see that here, you have at the core of the value creation, shared pools in education, in science, in industry, in agriculture, and civic commons. So what would that be? You would have open education, right? You have education that needs to be accessible to all, that has no copyright, that can be shared, that can be worked on, that can be remixed. That's one. Science, think about open scientific labs. This is a good example. As you may know, open hardware almost across the board is 1/8 of the cost of proprietary hardware. So today about 90% of scientific instruments could be moved, if you wanted it, from proprietary scientific hardware to open scientific hardware. There's a book, I forgot the title, it's by, oh my God, Nikolai, the guy from the Open Sustainable Technology Lab in Michigan State University. Joshua Pierce has written a book about the Open Science Lab and how you do that, in a detailed fashion. How do you change from a proprietary microscope to an open microscope? If you would do that, you would have either 1/8 of the cost for the same number of science labs, or you have 8 times more students who could participate in this activity, right? Now think about open agriculture. So there's one district in Ecuador, it's called Sicchos. It's a beautiful place, the most beautiful place I've seen in my life. It's the 3rd poorest district, and it has 22,000 people, only 2,000 in the towns, 20,000 farmers, 70% indigenous. And they're in pretty bad shape according to certain criteria. So basically, they have no control over their supply chain. So every time the middlemen come and they say, well, we're sorry, but the Colombians are cheaper, so we can't pay you as much as last year. And so not only are they not moving up the scale, they're actually going down every year and having more and more difficulty to make ends meet. And because a lot of the land there is alpine, very low land productivity, so there is issues around food sovereignty, food sufficiency, etc., etc. Of course, they have traditional agriculture, but it's fairly static. It doesn't evolve very rapidly. And so one of the things they could do, and they want to do it, so I went to speak there, and so very great enthusiasm of the indigenous communities there. We had an assembly of the people. And so one of the things we could do would be to move towards a combination of global open agricultural machine design communities as they exist today. Think about open source ecology, 54 machines, civilization in a box, all open hardware. Think about the Open Tech Collaborative, they make the open source beehives. Think about the Atelier Paysan in France, a huge community of eco-farmers designing their own machines, Farm Hack, Slow Tools Project, convivial technology without fossil fuels. So all these projects exist on a global scale, but they're not connected with local farmers in in sick jobs, for example. So what if we could somehow create a connection between these global communities, mutualize the knowledge, and then find some way to produce their own machines in microfactories using 3D printing machines. I'm not saying this is easy to do, but there is a huge potential. It's worth trying out to make the production autonomous, close to the needs, biodegradable materials, shared open designs. They cannot do anything like that today because the machine designs are proprietary. They don't have access to it. And they don't have the money to buy the big machines. And the small machines are not being designed by agribusiness. They're not interested in it, right? If you want food sovereignty, you may want to explore whether this is a good way or not. Okay, civic commons, open data from the government, allowing citizens to use and remix public data. Now, why is this not a technocratic, techno-deterministic project? Because, well, you have to look at the social and material conditions in which these things can emerge, right? So you can't use internet if you don't have pipes, so to speak, right? So we look at the material infrastructures that are necessary to make those shared knowledge pools possible, right? So if you want open science, you think about labs, right? You don't think only about sharing the knowledge of science. You have to be able to practice it, so you need the labs as a material infrastructure. If you want to do open agriculture machines, you need microfactories. Who's going to build them? Who's going to fund them, right? And actually, we had a kind of holistic. We looked at 5 things. We looked at. It's been a while ago. It was in June. Not been many things since. So we had. We looked at education and human development. We looked at legal infrastructures. We looked at physical infrastructures. We looked at governance and ownership, and we looked at. There was a specific field. We looked at urban commons infrastructures. So to give you an example of a kind of legal and ownership infrastructure. So we have a research plan. It's here. Let me just show you. So we have a generic commons transition plan, the first time this was ever done. And of course, it's not fully what we need to do. This is a contract with the government, right? So they asked us to do shared knowledge pools. They didn't ask us to decommodify land, labor, and money, right? So only one of the 4 aspects of commodification was actually taken care of. And, you know, this is a contract. But as you see from the previous slide, we try to expand it to material and immaterial infrastructures. It was kind of a way to reintroduce these issues in the project. Now, an example would be of a commons-based public services. So we introduced 2 notions there. One is the partner state. What is a partner state? It's not a market state, which empowers and enables market activities and market actors. A partner state is a concept where the state, the public services, enable and empower autonomous social production. So it creates all the necessary civic infrastructures that are necessary to enable these kinds of activities which need an infrastructure, right? So we talked about the commonification of public services and public commons partnerships. For example, in social care, and this is not new, this has been done in Emilia-Romagna and in Quebec for 10, 15 years already, they have social care co-ops. So it's not the state that provides the service in a bureaucratic way, let's say the NHS. It's not a privatized medicine like in the US, where you need money if you want care. It's kind of it's a commons-oriented because it's done by multi-stakeholder solidarity cooperatives. So the users, the nurses, the doctors, the city, co-produce and co-manage and co-own the delivery of healthcare, right? It's still publicly funded and egalitarian, but the delivery is a commons. It's not privately owned and it's not publicly owned, right? It's a kind of a new thing. So these are the kind of things we we worked on. Okay, here, immaterial infrastructure, another example. As you know, Ecuador has a beautiful constitution, they have a beautiful national plan, but it's not always what is actually happened in practice. So that's another issue. I give you an example. There's a lot of talk in the Ecuadorian national plan of co-ops and the solidarity economy. But if you actually want to do it, it's about 40 times harder to create a co-op than to create a startup. So beautiful ideas, beautiful text, but in practice it doesn't work because you have to be 25 people to create a co-op. It's totally controlled by the state. So there's many issues there around the actual practice of creating cooperatives and creating a real solidarity economy because the rhetoric doesn't always fit the actual practice. I don't know if I have much time left. No.
Just 1 minute left. Okay. For the first round, we have a second.
Yeah. So basically, it's not an utopian project. How did it go? Let me conclude with that. It went so-so. So yes, we got funded. We thought that was the original agreement, that was a strategic engagement of the government. It wasn't. So basically, the reality of this project is that third and fourth level officials, especially the ones that are led from the civic revolution, that are concentrated in the National Plan Bureau and in the Innovation Secretariat, they're the ones pushing it. But they have to convince all the layers above to actually do it. Nevertheless, for example, we have a mayor of Sigjos, was elected 6-1, indigenous party. He wants to go all the way into open agriculture and open industry for the district. He bought a 2,200 hectare land to do experimentation with open agriculture. So something is going to happen in various places, but it's going to take time and effort to get there. But on a global level, and maybe this is a bit self-serving, but I'll say it anyway, this is the first time we have a commons-oriented transition plan, right? It may not be perfect, but at least we have a reference. So we're going to create a commonstransition.net website soon that will be used as a common platform for commons-based policy making, where you can have, how do we decommodify land? Community land trust. Where is it being done? How does it work? Money. How do we decommodify money? How do we decommodify labor and knowledge? And we will travel around the world, this is the plan, to do workshops where people on the ground that are already doing these things can formulate their work as policy proposals, and will be by subject, by language, by country, and by level, so city level, regional level. So we want to use this dynamic, I'm sorry, so I'm finished, to, not to stop at a relative success or relative failure, but to go ahead with similar projects elsewhere in the world. Thank you.